And here is a model in the same costume that you just saw. When we did Battlestar Galactica, you can stick up the next slide because I've got two of each of these costumes. They decided to merchandise it, and they sold rights to Sears to do children's pajamas and so forth, and they were going to do a women's wear line of clothes. And go ahead to the next one, because that's all these are. You can just change them randomly. And so we did this photo session, and these were the clothes that were all made for the citizens of Caprica and the other planets that were straight. And as I said, they're all gone. There's not one piece of these things anywhere to be found, because the extras all fell in love with them, and they took them home with them piece by piece. The skirts would disappear, and the blouses would disappear, and we'd end up making more and making more. I don't remember how many we made of them, but it went on and on and on forever. And it's quite interesting in the fact that at the time, this kind of a look was not at all prevalent in fashion. And it was not more than a couple years after Galactica that all these same type of clothes were out on the market in different stores. Lace Adzer did a killing on skirts and blouses, just like we designed for the show. So it's, I think, a wonderful compliment to be imitated in that way. These were combinations of pants and pants over dresses and tunic tops. Just like this two-tiered ruffled skirt. This was sold all over the place thereafter. It's too bad that they never went ahead with the merchandising. This came to nothing. I mean, they never did a thing with the concept. One of the concepts of Battlestar Galactica that I don't know if any of you have ever noticed, but very, very few of the women in the show ever wore any jewelry. They wore pins sometimes. And Cyrus, Anne Jeffrey's part in The Man with Nine Lives, she was about the only person who wore earrings in the entire show. It was just a concept. We didn't want to belabor the look with a lot of an unnecessary adornment. Is that the end? Yeah, I thought so. Somebody turn up the light? Now you've got to help me out, because if you don't, I'm going to be dead up here. I need questions. Anybody want to step up to the microphone and ask any questions?
I don't know, you might have covered this.
That's okay.
Could you just briefly describe to us what some of the early conversations were like between you and Glenn Larson about, because the costumes obviously, they had a style, and a lot of it seemed to do, with ancient Egypt and some of that. I was just wondering if you could describe how he approached you, and what you said, what you thought, and how you guys collaborated on the look that came about.
Okay. As I said, a lot of what I'm saying is well documented in this interview I gave to the magazine, and it's all in there. Battlestar Galactica, the concept was on the page. It didn't leave much to discuss in reality. Glenn had written a script in which the people of Caprica were a very kind, peace-loving group who had long conquered war and strife and greed, and he didn't want it to have a high-tech look. He wanted it to be very warm and very comfortable. I chose a lot of muted earth colors for the costumes. I chose very soft-flowing cloths, things that would hang very well. There was virtually no stiffness of any kind to be seen in the warriors' clothes or the Capricans' clothes. whereas we took the exact opposite for the Cylons and made them very stiff and very cold and very hard-looking. But there really wasn't anything ever on the page that said, I want the women to be wearing sandals and soft flowing skirts and things like that. Or there was nothing, directions like that for me. It was simply in the story itself. Being a costume designer, you take the concept from the story and you interpret it in a sketch, and then you submit them. Once I started showing Leslie and Glenn the sketches that I had done for the show, there was virtually little communication after that. They were very happy with the concept I'd come up with, and it was probably one of the reasons I loved the show so much, because I was really given almost free rein. When we came to certain characters, like Lucifer, Glenn would say he wanted his head to be clear and see all the wires and so forth going on, and he wanted him to be, I remember him saying he wanted him to be in red. I do remember that. But those were about the only kind of inputs that either one of them ever gave to me regarding the show. When we would do each of the individual episodes, like when we did the Young Lords, and I chose the chamois and the feathers and so forth, and Glenn simply looked at them and said, "These are great." I went ahead with them. There wasn't much done after that. I was very, very lucky. I always thought to be able to have this kind of an opportunity to be so free to be able to create. Another question, please.
Where'd you get the inspirations for the garb worn by the people on Planet Arctic, Gunnize Planet Zero? I mean, the Thetas and Dr. Ravachol. Was Dr. Ravachol's inspiration a Nehru jacket? That's what it looks like.
No. If anything, it was stylized more from Mao Chung, because the Chinese look of the quilting and so forth, because we wanted him to be scientific looking in a very warm looking costume because of it being the ice planet. SDR 5-9, who was the male lead, their costumes were supposed to look like working clothes, people who worked in underground and things like that. And because they were all clones, they were all dressed identically alike and given various markings for their rank and who they were. I don't remember much about that. I remember that we had so many more problems having to deal with the wigs and the face masks that all the extras had to wear to look like Britt Eklund and Denny Moore, right? Denny Miller. Yeah. I remember a wonderful story of working with Britt. I had worked with her before. This is about as scandalous as this interview is going to get. But